Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that little video there about Napoleon. Obviously, that's where our discussion is going now as we move through the French Revolution. So, to kind of recap where we left off, we know that the Reign of Terror ended with Robespierre ultimately being executed publicly by members of his own government. And when that happens, they actually set up a new government with the Directory. And I explained that there were five presidents that were part of the Directory. But we know, historically speaking, that they were generally pretty corrupt individuals. And that's ultimately going to come back to haunt them. But I did tell you that one thing they do that kind of seals their place in history is they name Napoleon Bonaparte as the commander of the French military. So what happens here is, we're going to see a whole new change. We're going to see something else happen. And with this, I wanted to go through and cover, exactly what happened here. Because it is very interesting. He's kind of a larger than life character, and we have to really understand, why he is considered to be this this genius that he is kind of considered to be today, even though he's a very flawed genius. So this here is lesson 3. We are still in the French Revolution. The French Revolution is not over. We just know that a lot of crazy things have happened, and we are just entering a new phase of it right now. So taking a look here at this map of Europe, everything that is in a color blue, it doesn't matter what color blue, anything that is blue here in this map is ultimately going to be a territory that Napoleon is going to take control of. So when you look at this, you obviously can see that, he is going to make some kind of impact on Europe and the world, which we're going to see here. So we have to learn a little bit about the guy, who he was, what he did. So what I have here, first of all, is that he was born in 1769, and he actually is from this little island right here, and that is known as Corsica. Okay, so in this time period, Corsica is actually controlled by France. He grows up kind of like upper middle class. His father actually served on the Legislative Assembly in France. They do have ties. He has a bunch of brothers and sisters. He has like 8 or 9 brothers and sisters. But what we know is at the age of 9, he actually basically earns a scholarship to go to military school. And this military school is actually in France. So at the age of 9, he leaves home and he goes to this essentially, boarding school. It's a military school, but it's a boarding school. And what we know there is that he's not necessarily spectacular from the beginning. As a teenager, he's kind of awkward, kind of weird. There were rumors that he didn't like to shower, maybe. So he kind of kept people away because of the way that he looked and probably smelled, but he also was probably a little socially awkward. So he wasn't your, most popular guy in school. That'll change. But obviously, he had some things going on there. And what he does is he ultimately is able to be very successful at military school. And he will graduate from military school. But it's really not until 1795 that he really starts to make a name for himself. He did serve in the French military during the French Revolution. So while all those crazy things are going on during the Revolution, he is part of the military and he's having to, deal with that in a lot of ways. So what happens is he was able to prove himself during the French Revolution in the military. And in 1795, he basically gets kind of like a promotion. In 1795, the Directory, which we know at this time is, the governing body of France, right? Those 5 presidents that we have, they were becoming increasingly unpopular. And what happened is whenever the Directory would go into session, people would basically riot and protest outside of the building that the Directory and the National Convention were meeting in. So the actual delegates and members of the Directory had great difficulty actually getting into the building to conduct their meetings and their business. So Napoleon, who was pretty young at this time, he is basically called upon to defend the Directory and the National Convention. So in 1795, that's what he does. And what he actually does is he sets up a cannonade around the building. And for those of you that don't know what a cannonade is, it's basically just a row of cannons. So he sets up this row of cannons around the building where these meetings go on. And whenever the meeting started up for that day, and people started to like rush towards the building and try to charge the building and disrupt things, Napoleon basically just like orders all of these cannons to be fired. And when he orders all of these cannons to be fired, he just like blows up a bunch of people and kills a bunch of people, and it works. It gets the crowds to stop. Because he is able to get like the rioting under control for these meetings to go on, the Directory puts great value in him, and he's like seems like a kind of like a savior of the Directory when he does this. So from there, he's going to kind of get more jobs handed to him. And one thing you have to remember is that France is still at war against like Austria and Prussia in the First Coalition. That hasn't stopped. So, he still, has a job to do. And what they actually do is they make a choice to send him to Italy first to ultimately go up against Austria there. So they send him into Italy to lead essentially a unit of men up against the Austrian forces. And you maybe have seen some kind of famous paintings and things like that of Napoleon like on a horse and in mountains and whatnot. That's obviously depictions of what goes on here. He literally fights the First Coalition like in the Alps, in the mountains, and he's successful. He kind of sweeps through Italy, and they sent him kind of on his way. And we know that not only was Italy being utilized by the First Coalition, so was Egypt, all right, in Africa, northern Africa. Egypt was actually where the British were kind of training and sending their troops to prepare themselves to go up against the French military. So his next job is to go on to Egypt.